there. Welcome to ELT Focus. Today, I'm going to read my article, The Use of Content-Based Instruction as a Viable Solution to EAL Teaching in Rio de Janeiro State Public Schools. I wrote this article 3 years ago in 2017, and when I mention 4 years ago, that means this happened in 2013, okay? So let's start. 4 years ago, I was granted a scholarship at the University of Kansas, KU, along with other teachers from my state of Rio de Janeiro, as well as Minas Gerais and Brasília. There, I saw the idea of the content-based instruction, CBI, for the first time. I initially regarded it as just a new method, but I was eventually convinced that such an instruction was exactly what I was looking for my classes at state public school, where teachers have to follow mandatory minimum curriculum for English as an additional language based on text genres such as recipes, biographies, and resumes. The goal of that 6-week refresher course was to show Brazilian teachers that CBI can help teachers and students work together on more natural acquisition of English skills. I have been doing further research since I came back from Kansas in order to apply this approach to state school where I work. I have also spread the word among my undergraduate and graduate students at UGB, showing future teachers that it is up to them to change the elementary and high school scenario they insistently complain about of classes focusing on decontextualized grammar or meaningless translations, all spoken in Portuguese. It is curious that the grammar translation method, GTM, was a popular approach in the 19th century to teach Latin, an already dead language. Many teachers seem unaware that the fact that methods focused on grammar are over 2,500 years old and keep using them, although the PCMs prioritize communication as the great goal of ELT. The Rio de Janeiro State Minimum Curriculum indicates that the aim of state school foreign language classes should be oral and written comprehension through the exploration of different text forms. And on top of that, the recently developed BNCC enforces the student's right to acquire knowledge that they can use rather than be exposed to theoretical concepts and linguistic categories for future reference. According to it, students must use the language and build a repertoire of linguistic practices. BNCC also mentioned the challenges ELT will have to face in Brazil, one of which is the overcoming of a technical view of language that limits it to grammar explanations of decontextualized sentences, whereas the focus should be on discursive viewpoint based on the construction of meaning. I heard numerous state teachers, this is how I refer to the Rio de Janeiro State Public School English teachers from now on, complain a lot when we were required to implement the minimal curriculum. The reason for those complaints was the absolute change the new curriculum proposed once they were used to root most of their language teaching on grammar, which is not explicit in the program. So, what I'm trying to defend here is that still in the 21st century, there are many teachers who want to teach their students grammar and translation. The GTM is the grammar translation method, which, as I defined earlier, is a very old method that was already constructed, it was already developed for dead languages. English is a living language, and any other foreign language we study today should be studied as living languages because we must communicate in these languages. In order to communicate, it is important to practice the language instead of just learn the rules of the language. And the grammar translation method, as any other method that makes students just do exercises about a language without actually practicing it orally and in writing, these methods will not be so effective as methods that show language, a language as a whole. So let's move on. These new directions, however, make sense when a teacher understands that the focus of an English lesson must be the practice of the language that will build students' confidence when they are exposed to it in real life, either in conversation or reading. I just told about this, okay? The resilient GTM, on the other hand, may not be so helpful, for according to Oliveira, it offers few opportunities for oral practice in the classroom once the teacher and the students use their shared native language to translate and to explain everything. In most Brazilian regular schools, we may then conclude there is instruction about an additional language, not in it. So when we study an additional language, when we study a foreign language, when we study a second language, it is important to use the language, not just to learn about the language. It's important to speak the language in the classroom. It's important to listen to the language. It's important to read in the language and to write in the language as well. It's not a question of just learning the rules. Oh, how does this language works? Oh, this and this and this and this ways. So do exercises now. And then the teacher corrects the exercises. Very good, you're learning the language. No, you may be learning the rules of the language, but it is important to learn how to use it. The notion of learning about something rather than learning about language is the very core aspect of that CBI can offer us, according to Davis. So pay attention at this. Learning about something rather than learning about language. We should learn about anything in the world using the language. We should learn about any topic in the language, but not learn about language. Okay, this is a mistake according to Davis. This means that the content presented by the syllabus or curriculum must be themes, topics, or text types that will help build learners' knowledge in other areas. Brown points out that language becomes the medium to convey information content of interest and relevance to learners. That is, it takes its appropriate role as a vehicle for accomplishing a set of content goals. In fact, if the language lesson is an opportunity for students to rehearse what they might face outside the classroom, state teachers, as well as any other teachers, should never use Portuguese as the main vehicle of communication with English as an additional language students in Brazil. So, it is very important to think about this. If we have an English class, our language in the class must be English. I'm talking mostly to college students right now, but this could be about high school students, elementary school students, Small children, okay, any English class should have its focus on practicing English, speaking English, using English. Okay, it may not be 100% of the time, but it must be a great part of the class. It is very important to think about this because learning a language must involve practicing the language, must involve using the language at all times, okay? Brown also highlights that the relevance of the content in CBI lessons promotes intrinsic motivation and empowerment. The importance of using relevant material can be seen in ESL contexts, such as foreign language students going to American university. Okay, let me stop here for a while. Using relevant material, using material that makes sense, using material that may help you learn the language, but not grammar books, but not translation material. It's using material that is good for you. So if you are a psychology student, you must read texts about psychology and learn English with the text about psychology. If you are an engineering student, you must read texts about engineering in English if you're learning English as a foreign language here in Brazil. This is very important. Using relevant material is using material that is important in your area to learn English. Stoller and Grabe state that CBI is used to teach them the language skills they will need for their studies using content that is related to their fields. Sometimes content classes are taught by a language teacher aiding an area specialist. So in some universities around the world where CBI is applied, there is one teacher of content, so one teacher of engineering or math or biology, whatever, the content that you're studying, and one teacher of English, because most universities around the world have classes in English, even if English is not the official language of the country, okay? But this is very common. Sometimes it's not English, but it's the local language. So there is a teacher of language and there is a teacher of content, and they may and sometimes they must act together. The former may introduce the linguistic elements to the students, will need to understand when they are exposed to the latter's lecture and material. This is called the sheltered model according to Davis. Other universities offer the adjunct model, in which separate language lessons prepare foreign students for the regular lectures they will attend in the second language. In an EFL context such as ours, Davis suggests the use of CBI theme-based model, in which teachers may choose content from an enormous number of diverse topics. Besides being team-taught like sheltered and adjunct models, the theme-based CBI may also be delivered by a solo teacher, situation which better corresponds to the Brazilian reality. Davis also mentions that teacher or teachers can create a course of study designed to unlock and build their own students' interests. In an attempt to adapt this model to the Rio de Janeiro State Public School reality, the themes selected can be directly connected to the text forms appointed by the minimum curriculum. So the idea I am proposing here is that when the minimum curriculum says that you should teach your students recipes, okay? Just the content is the recipes. The content is not verbs in the imperative. The content is not action verbs. The content is not prepositions. No, the content is recipes. When you must teach biographies, the content is biographies. The content is not verbs in the past. Of course, you will have to expose the students to verbs in the past if you were teaching them biographies, if they are going to read biographies. But the content is not that, in fact. CBI is not called a method or approach because it can be adapted to other methods or approaches. So you can use other methods and include CBI in it, include some of the CBI techniques in it. Some aspects of a content-based instruction lesson include, firstly, the desire to attract our students' attention. As our elementary and high school pupils may not be using professional study material, we may find another subject that may have things in common with the minimum curriculum, quarterly content, and having interdisciplinary lessons. So what if we discuss in class something that relates to biology, to geography, to the news, to something that is happening currently, and we get texts from those genres. And when I say texts, it doesn't only mean written texts. It can be, the text can be an interview on TV, it can be a news story on TV or on the internet, it can be videos of any kind, series, it could be a song, it could be an audio, a podcast, it could be anything, it could even be a work of art, okay, a painting. So any text that can help students acquire that content through English being used as a media, or the foreign language being used as a media, that's the idea. That's the best possibility for our students, I believe. The English teacher could, for example, join the discussion of the sociology teacher in order to provide the students with topics for an opinion article in the high school junior classes. This way, students' knowledge would be reinforced. An exciting alternative would be to work on learners' non-academic interests, bringing, for instance, biographies of pop stars to senior classes. The text chosen must be authentic, even though abridgments are possible. So, one prerogative of CBI too is to use authentic texts. Don't just create texts from your mind. Use texts that are used in normal life, outside the classroom. Okay? Of course, sometimes these texts are too difficult. You may abridge them. You may facilitate the students' learning by adapting the vocabulary, even adapting the grammar, but get the texts that students could face in real life. Teachers may take several different roles and become specialists in the area discussed in the texts, introducing themselves as pilots, chefs, or even TV hosts. So it is very exciting to teach a CBI lesson like this. You can get in the classroom dressed like a pilot if you're talking about aviation on that day, if the content is aviation, it's a biography of a pilot. You could come to the classroom with a microphone or something else if you are going to be a TV host and you are going to interview some students, you are going to play that game. Okay, it is very, very exciting to do something like this, to teach a class like this. Communication with students must always be in the target language. However simplified, in terms of grammar, explicit pronunciation, word order, and redundancy. So it is important to talk to students in English. Oh, but my students do not understand when I speak English. I have something to tell you. There was a class I was teaching using CBI, and I was explaining a lot of things in English, and one student raised his hand and said, "Do you think we understand what you're saying?" No, we don't. We just understand the pictures you draw on the board and all the gestures that you make, all that crazy stuff, the crazy acting you do in front of us. That's all we understand. We don't understand the words you're saying. And then I told him, okay, if you think you understand only that, that's enough for me, because you already understand something. You're already paying attention and trying to understand, and the language is coming in your ears, and you are learning from that, okay? So if the teacher thinks, oh, it's too hard for the students to understand, okay, grade down, slow down your speech, make a selection of easier vocabulary, of simple grammar, especially if students are beginners, okay, especially in state schools where many students say they know nothing about English. Start by doing things very simple, making everything simple, and then speak slowly, help students understand little by little, draw things on the board, on the whiteboard. Even if you're terrible at drawing, do it, okay? The more terrible, the funnier, okay? So try to do this, and then students will have an idea of what you're talking about, and they will have an idea of the language. Before each text is approached, however, the teacher must supply students with the linguistic tools they will need to understand the text. This is called scaffolding. Okay, what is scaffolding? It's when the teacher offers the student vocabulary, expressions, cultural ideas, everything that the students will need to understand the text, written, oral, video, music, whatever text you're talking about, a game, okay? So when the students, when there is difficult vocabulary or when there are difficult ideas that you fear your students will not understand, an important thing to do is to do scaffolding, is to present some of the vocabulary, some of the ideas, some of the grammar, but not, look, vocabulary here. No, play a game with the students for them to learn the vocabulary. Sing a song with the students with that grammar. Do something different to attract students' attentions, and then students will connect the ideas and the words to pictures, for example, in their minds. When they are ready, then you give them the text. And then when you give them the text, it will be a lot easier for them to understand. Okay? So this is called scaffolding and may be performed at a conceptual level by showing flashcards or realia before the reading task. Alternatively, the teacher may prepare a game using the main vocabulary or grammar structure of the text. Notice that even this preparation must be done in the target language. So do this in English. Don't say, oi, ei gente, vamos fazer agora uma brincadeira para a gente aprender o vocabulário do texto. No, don't say this, okay? Tell them, hey everybody, let's play a game, okay? Game. Do you like games? Let's play a game. You don't have to explain that game is a preparation for the other activity. No, Just tell them, let's play a game. And then when you play the game and you prepare the students' vocabulary, grammar, conceptual ideas, then the students will be ready from the game. They will be ready for the real text. Okay? Students must practice it from the very first minute of the lesson. That's the idea of CBI. Is it easy to do? No, it's not easy. It takes a lot of effort. But I'm sure that if you can do it, your students will thank you in the long run. So, in summary, trying CBI may be the chance to use contents that students need or like in order to promote a more effective language acquisition rather than staying inside our comfort zones teaching about English, which may take students nowhere. After all, if language is a means of communication, why should we waste our time speaking Portuguese in our English classes? Does it make sense to you to speak Portuguese in an English class? It shouldn't. It shouldn't make sense. We are all speakers of Portuguese here in Brazil, and Portuguese may be used to facilitate a few things, but the most important thing our students do in their English class is to speak English, listen to English, read in English, and write in English. If our students are listening to Portuguese, are speaking Portuguese, are writing in Portuguese, are reading in Portuguese, even if they read in English and translate the text, comprehension questions are in Portuguese, and the students will read the translation of the text to answer the comprehension questions. That is not an English class, okay? And then when I say we, I'm included in this. We should change this, okay? We should try to prepare better lessons, okay? So I count on you. Thank you for your attention and see you in the next article. Bye.